Hello, it's Matt Thomas back with Sonic Academy looking at the Arturia DX7 V. As you may have guessed, this is based on Yamaha's DX7, the infamous all-time monster-selling digital synth from 1983 onwards. Probably the best-selling synth of all time, but there's all kinds of disputes about that on the internet. I urge you not to get involved. But yeah, DX7, big-selling synth. It kind of killed off analog because it was wonderfully cheap, wonderfully polyphonic by the standards of the day, and allowed you to kind of do all kinds of stuff that previously cost 3 or 4 times as much. So pretty much a no-brainer. Normally at this point I do the history of the synth and the company and how it came to be. I'm not going to do that today, and there is a reason. What I'm going to do instead is, you know, those flow charts, the should I bother the DJ things. Well, I'm going to do one of them now. So the first question on the flow chart is, do you really understand FM synthesis? Right, if it's yes, carry on listening. If it's no, what you need to do is nip over and look at the Sonic Academy Introduction to FM Synthesis that I did previously. That's got all the lovely history, so you can have a good old delve through how this came to be. And more importantly, it's got an absolutely from the foundations upwards guide to how to do FM synthesis. The DX7 FM synthesizer, you're not going to get very far unless you've got some idea of what's going on. Obviously, I'm going to talk you through the whole instrument, but you're really going to find it quite an uphill struggle if you've not tried this kind of synthesis before. All right, I'm going to say that you're saying, yeah, we'll push on. Otherwise, no, nip over, check it out, 101 FM synthesis. You'll thank me. Right, so what we'll do now is we will look at an overview of how the DX7V is laid out, a kind of basic understanding of the architecture of the synthesizer, and once we've done that, we'll just go through it piece by piece by piece. And as usual, the whole thing is monstrously complicated. I've had a number of desperate questions from the guys at the Sonic saying, are you going to get round to doing the DX7V? So here it is. I gather a few people are waiting for this one. Piece by piece, it's really simple. Altogether, there's quite a lot, but if we go through it slowly, as ever, you'll find it's an eminently understandable synthesizer with a load of possibilities in return for that complexity. So let's start. What can we see straight away? What we've got is up the top, DX7, in case you're confused, and we've got some global controls for things like transpose, tuning, amplitude and pitch modulation. Okay, so they affect the whole sound. Down here we've got the volume slider, pretty straightforward. 4 assignable data sliders. You can assign those to 1 or more parameters, so you can do a bit of easy front panel editing without delving into the complicated stuff. Over here we've got the algorithm window, which is a lot bigger than the horrid little LCD you used to get on a real DX7. And obviously you know what the algorithm window is showing because you know all about FM synthesis. It's your last chance to bail out. Take it, take it. No, you do know. Fantastic. On we go. So yeah, a nice big display to see what algorithm you're working with. Over here we've got controls on the front panel for things like the feedback loops. There's a pitch envelope inside here that can be applied to any of the operators. That will control how deep that pitch envelope is. There's some basic housekeeping stuff like mono or poly, portamentos on or off, arpeggiator and controls for that. Pitch bend, mod wheel. Down here we've got some velocity control which sets whether the DX7V behaves like a current modern synthesizer or like the old DX7 as far as velocity is concerned. Unison, poly, we'll come to all of this. I'm just whipping you through a quick idea of what's on the screen so you know what's in front of you. It demystifies the whole thing. MIDI channel, panic. A nice handy feature when you're hovering over any control, if you click, you'll see now down the bottom left it now says pitch EG, right at the very bottom left of this Arturia window. Yeah, if I click on that one, it now says feedback. So whenever you're moving any control, if you just click on it, it tells you what it is before you move it, and then once you start moving it, it gives you a feedback as to what actually is happening. So while you're editing, if you need to do fine adjustments or anything, you need to use your eyes rather than your ears. Bottom left, there is a readout what's happening. Well, that was straightforward. We can all go home. No, we can't, because when I press this, that happens. So yeah, we get all the beautiful workings of this monstrously complicated synthesizer in a wonderfully beautiful graphic user interface. Now, trust me, we used to have on the real DX7s a little LCD that was, if you see where my mouse is now, it was about the size of where it says 3 in the arrows. It had like about a couple of lines of text and all this mad complexity. You had to just read the text and go, Yeah, level 4, rate 2, I need to be 75. That's easy. There's a reason lots of people didn't learn to program the DX7. That's because it was a monster being accessed through something the size of a gnat's letterbox. Now, luckily for you, Arturia have put together this much more beautiful 4 tabs. There you go, 1, 2, 3, 4. And in there is all the editing you need to get to grips with this machine. So I'm going to quickly run you through the 4 tabs and what's on them, and then we will go through it much slower. Okay, tab 1, overview. Here you've got the 6 operators. Operators, as you know, is a little kind of gaggle of circuits on oscillator with an envelope and a VCA. And in the case of the Arturia 7V, you also get a filter thrown in. So you have 6 operators. So if I flick here on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you'll see that all these controls here, they're going to change because you have 6 operators, and so 6 lots of operator controls. So we're currently looking at operator 1. If I fiddle with the cutoff on operator 1, you'll see that operator 2 is completely separate. If I turn it on, boom, boom. So you see these are all independent operators. So each one, they're a bit like oscillators on an analog synth. So if you're here because you're sort of blagging it, then you can think of these as oscillators, but go and read up, they're operators. Okay, I won't say it again. Honest. Okay, so 6 operators and the controls for them. So what are those controls? We've got an oscillator section. Unlike the original DX7, we've got a bunch of waves other than sine. The original DX7 gave you a sine wave. Here we've got all kinds, about 24 of them. Pick your waveform as usual. You can invert it, detune it, control the pitch. And there's also an on-off switch for the pitch envelope. Over here you've got a filter. Again, you can turn it in and out. You've got control of cutoff and resonance. Over here we have the output level, which is things like feedback and how the operator responds to amplitude and velocity, and where you want to pan it. And that is per operator, different for each one. And as you can see, you also have an envelope per operator, which controls the volume of that operator, and a level scaling, which controls how loud the operator is across the keyboard. So you can put in sort of curves that means it's louder at certain points, say in the lower octaves, and now it'll be quieter in the higher octaves. We'll come to it all in a minute. So after you've done the individual operator controls, we've got the global. Okay, here you've got simple stuff again. Pitch bend, wheel, how far it bends, whether it bends smoothly on steps. Portamento, how that behaves when you've got a sustain pedal on. Polyphony, mono, poly, unison, detune. And last of all, we've got a nice little waveform readout and a switch between the old-fashioned 12-bit DX7 digital converters, nice and dirty and noisy, or lovely clean modern ones. That's pretty much the overview tab. It controls the operators, the parameters for the operators, and a little global housekeeping. Okay, next, the envelopes. Now, this is a nice window where you can control the operator envelopes just as you could back on overview. It just gives you a larger place to work in, okay? Better sort of access to controls, etc. But you can quickly grab the envelope and do stuff in here as well. Okay, and if we come back here, there you go, that changes there. So the second tab is where you get a nice big workspace just to work on envelopes. As well as the 6 operators, you've also got the master pitch envelope, which can be applied to any of those, and you've got 2 modulation envelopes that can be sent all over the place using a modulation matrix. Speaking of which, the modulation matrix. You've got 24 connections. You've got 1, 2, 8, 9 to 16, 17 to 24. Down the left, you've got sources across the top. You've got destinations, and we can pull up any one of these and send it to any one of those. Over on the right side, we've got the LFO1 and LFO2, their wave speed, etc. And we've got a sequencer that can be assigned as just like an LFO to various modulation destinations. We've also, again, as I mentioned before, we've got the 2 modulation envelopes. Here they are, 1 and 2. You can have a quick edit of those, like an easy grab in this window here. So you can either look at the LFOs or the envelopes. So as I mentioned before, you're looking at an amount of duplication going on here. What seems to be an overwhelming number of choices. Some of them are actually duplicated, so start to kind of breathe a bit slower. It's all right, it's going to be fine. And last of all, FX. We've got 4 FX slots, phases, flanges, analog delay, and so on and so on. You can stick them in a series of 4, or you can break it up into a parallel of 2. That's it, we finished. That breakneck run through is it. That's the whole synth. So now you're either sitting there going, oh, that's a lot better, or you're sitting there going, oh god. Either way, get a cup of tea, take a breath, and now we'll go through the whole thing much slower.
Thanks everybody for watching, commenting and indeed liking. We really do appreciate all the support we get here on our Sonic Academy YouTube channel. So if you found this video super useful, please, we'd love you to hit the subscribe button. We update the YouTube channel every week with new content, and if you want to watch some more relevant content, just click on the videos beside me.